Good afternoon, folks. I'm going to do a small scenario today, not involving too many forces, and we're going to take it from this book here, as I've showed before, is the War Game Companion. And the scenario we've picked is the wagon train scenario. Oops, I'll just zoom in that. And what this basically is a convoy going down a road, it could be a ammunition convoy, it could be a dignitary being escorted. So in our case, it's 2 British battalions. I'm going to be escorting some civilian dignitaries, just at the back there, you might be able to see, down this road. And attacking them will be a French cavalry regiment and a French infantry battalion. You dice for where they come on and then what move they come on. So we've done that, and this cavalry regiment got lucky because they are arriving on turn 1 in this bottom left corner, and the infantry regiment that will be coming on will be arriving on turn 4 mid-table. You also dice for a reinforcement battalion for the British. You roll 2 dice for them, so two d6s, and you can just see it over there, but they will be arriving on turn 8. And the objective for the French is obviously to capture the dignitaries. The dignitaries cannot leave the road, but the escorting troops can. So they couldn't just go off road and just go around that hill and boom, off they go, escape. They have to go along the road. Ideally it would be a cart, or it would be a wagon or something like that, but I don't actually have anything like that, so we're just going to use 2 walking civilians. So maybe one of them's got a limp or something and struggle across country, can only go across the road. So we'll see how it plays. It's looks like an interesting one. Like I say, smallish forces, but looks a good little scenario. It's been played a couple of times in the book. 2 examples. Both were wins for the what should we say, British. That's what I'm using, but only just. So we'll see how the French can do on the game that we do. I will be taking the role of the French, so we'll see if my luck continues after the last battle report. Okay, so we'll move on to the first turn. Okay, turn 1, and as the leading British battalion came down the road, just as they got past this wooded area on the left here, they saw the French cavalry that had just moved forward. So they're just peeled off the road at the moment. They are still in road column, but obviously from road column to line they basically just have to do a right face, but they're not quite deployed yet, which has given me an opportunity. So at the moment I'm here, but on my next move I will charge in. I could have just gone around this hill here and they wouldn't have seen me, and then tried to hit them a bit further down the road, but I thought this was a golden opportunity not to be missed here, where I could catch this little battalion before it deploys fully. So they will be able to, on the next move, before I charge in, or as I charge in, they'll be able to do a right face, but then we'll have to dice whether they actually manage to get a volley off. So this could turn out quite well for me, because if they don't get a volley off, then they're going to get a full impact of this cavalry regiment bearing down on them. As you can see over here, there are 2 civilians, and the rear battalion is now coming onto the table. So I've got at least another 3 moves before my infantry battalion comes on, but hopefully I can do some damage with these cavalry first. So we'll see what happens on turn 2. Okay, turn 2, and my cavalry did manage to charge in. Well, unfortunately for the British battalion didn't get a chance to send a volley my way before the charge, so I went straight in. This scenario in the book is actually a light cavalry regiment, but I'm using a heavy cavalry regiment for this game, and you can see there a couple of breakthroughs. 3 troopers went straight through the thin line, and the rest made contact. I didn't do brilliant on my dice rolls, so it could have been a lot worse for the British. I did manage to take out three men and one officer. But that unit, that battalion, will retire on this move, and I can reform my troopers, put them across the road, and stop, well, certainly deter this column that's coming down at the moment. So we'll move on to the next turn, and that'll be turn 3. So I've still got one more turn before my support battalion of infantry come on, but we'll see what happens in the next turn. Okay, turn 3, and I decided to pull my cavalry back a little bit because they were just a little bit too close to that battalion that was coming through, and they would have received a volley at close range before they had a chance to charge. So I pulled them back, and my plan is to basically move them further along the road, maybe to a spot about here, because on this next turn my long awaited infantry battalion will be arriving for support. So we can certainly even up the odds a little bit, and my cavalry is more mobile obviously than the infantry, so I might swing them around this hill here, try and maybe hit the infantry in the flank, whilst my lead battalion, or my only battalion I should say, of infantry hold off the road. So we'll see how it develops on the next move. Okay, turn 4, and my infantry battalion has now arrived on the table, so they've just moved on now, and my cavalry regiment has been pulled back to just on the corner bend of the road there as it heads off to the north, and these two battalions, that one obviously is rallied, and they are now just getting ready I suppose to make some sort of action towards my cavalry, and they've obviously just put themselves as a little bit of a barrier. You can see they've got a couple of grenadiers around the objective. So I did think about maybe a ride of death along this passage here into this battalion. Well, I would obviously receive a volley from them, and no doubt a volley from them, and it would be a ride of death. I think it would be suicide, to be honest. So I think I'm just going to push my infantry forward and try and take some casualties on these regiments before I commit my cavalry again, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity at some point for me to do another charge. So we'll see what happens on turn 5. Okay, turn 5, and some long-range volleys on this turn by the 2 British battalions and my French battalion. Long range as your first volley is probably not the best way to use your first volley, but basically with these rules there's 2 charts. I'll just show you. Zoom in on that. Okay, so what we have there is the first volley deductions, and then a normal volley deductions. So for my my regiments, I throw 1d6 for every 6 figures. So every 6 figures in a battalion get a d6, and then you throw it, and then you minus whatever the figure is on here. So for this volley it would have been a -3. 12 to 18 inches in the open, first volley -3. Unfortunately for the British, that's what they rolled. So they were the same, 12 to 18 inches, first volley, -3. Same with the other battalion, so not a good throw. Mine wasn't that much better, but at least I got 2 hits with one of my dice. See that dice there? There's a 5. Those can be ignored because they're all -3, obviously a minus figure or 0. So -3 from that then gives you 2 dice. So you have basically 2 hits. So what you do, again, these minor slight adaptation for the officer rule, but I roll 2 dice, and that tells me that basically one figure, that's number 1 figure, sorry, and number 5 figure have been killed. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or what. It doesn't matter. What does matter for my adaptation is if that was a 6, that would mean one normal soldier has been killed with the 1, and a 6 means potentially a officer has been killed. I would then roll the dice again to decide which officer it is. If it was a 6 again, it would be the colonel. Well, unfortunately this time it is. So basically that would say that the colonel has been hit. Now the colonel, well, all the officers have a saving throw of 5 or 6 anyway, so there is still a chance he could get saved. So that's how I do the officer rule anyway. So anyway, on this rule it was actually one chap, that guy there, who actually got hit twice. So when I rolled my 2 dice, it basically came up something like that. So not great volleys, as you can see. So just one poor casualty, unfortunate, very unlucky, got hit twice out of all those volleys. And nothing else with my cavalry this move. I was considering splitting them down into two squadrons and moving one around the side, but I'm just going to see what happens here, because I'm hoping that my infantry can start to do some damage. And didn't do much damage then, but we'll see on the next move. Okay, so we'll see what happens on the next move. Turn 6, and I've moved my cavalry forward. They have taken a couple of casualties, well, 3 casualties in total, from a volley from that battalion over there, which isn't too bad at that range. So they will charge in on this next turn, but there is a chance they could receive a volley. If they do, it'll be quite bad. If they don't, I fancy their chances against that battalion again. All depends whether they do get that initial volley. These two have been exchanging volleys again. Not much damage. One guy and 1 officer for the British battalion, and 2 guys for the French battalion. So they're just squaring off with each other at the moment. I'm pushed my cavalry forward because I'm wary of another battalion coming down that road very soon, in 2 moves to be exact. So we'll see whether they can charge through and do some damage. Turn 7, and unfortunately my cavalry did end up receiving a volley before the charge went in, but thankfully they didn't receive enough casualties to stop the charge. But they did lose their colonel. You can see him. He fell in the front rank when that volley went in. So the charge went in, got a couple of breakthroughs, and you can see quite a few casualties for the British battalion. So I received, when it actually came to the melee part, didn't receive any casualties on my on the cavalry. So they're just over 50%. So they're going to be okay for this turn anyway, and that British battalion is definitely going to be falling back. The other 2 battalions again still fighting it out. This time it was a British battalion that came off better with their volleys. They took 3 casualties off the French battalion, whereas the French battalion only took 1 casualty. But on this next turn, somebody's coming down that road. So time's running out for me. I've pretty much finished off 1 battalion. I really need to get to grips with this one now. Okay, turn 8, and the Scots Fusiliers have arrived. But are they too late? Let's have a look. So, obviously after that melee, my infantry battalion has now retreated, 1 full move, and it did actually fail its morale test at the end of this move. So it will be retreating again on the next move. My cavalry regiment, or what was left of it, I decided to just push them around that hill just to threaten this Fusilier battalion and hopefully make them deploy to just slow them down. They can't do a great deal in the state they're in at the moment, but if they can just slow them down, that'll be enough. Meanwhile, the fighting between these 2 has gone the way of the French. The British volley was terrible, didn't cause a single casualty, but the French volley, well, that was a different matter. No officers, but lots of men. So things are looking good for me at the moment. So they will take a morale test. If they pass, they'll still hold that line. If they don't, then they will be falling back as well. And I think I've got an opportunity here to achieve my goal. So we'll see how the next turn plays out. So turn 9, and I've turned my cavalry around yet again, because I believe that the Fusiliers are just too far away to impact this that's happening over here. And as they are really the only unit that can capture the dignitaries or move at a faster pace than dignitaries when they start to retreat, if they start to retreat, then I'm going to need them to touch base with them. So my infantry battalion moved just a little bit closer now. We're now within 6 inches. A couple of volleys, which the British actually did okay considering the amount of numbers they've got. They did actually take 3 French casualties, but unfortunately also received 3 British casualties and an officer. So they'll be taking a morale test before we start the next turn, and I think on this turn they're more than likely to receive a charge in the flank as well on this cavalry. I'm not quite adding it all up yet, but I'm not sure, they might be close to 50% as well. And then if this unit here cannot rally, then I can't see a win for the British. So we'll see how the next move 10 plays out. Okay, turn 10, and as suspected, this was the last move. The British battalion, the British battalion did fail its morale test, so it had to retreat anyway. And be honest, it was below 50%, so it would have had to retreat anyway. And then it received a volley from my French battalion, and then a charge from the heavy cavalry, in which they lost their colonel and the accompanying general. So, and as you can see there, they are surrounded, so they would, we basically decided they would have surrendered. There was nowhere for them to go. So a win for me, and the 2 dignitaries will be escorted off the battlefield before the Fusiliers can catch up. Fortunately, getting there 8, or arriving on turn 8 for the Fusiliers just wasn't enough, and it gave me time to basically deal with the situation over here before they could impact. Had they arrived earlier, then I think it would have been a whole different story. And the French volleys were quite good on this turn, on this game as well, which certainly helped, whereas the British volleys were not so good. So yeah, it was a good game, enjoyed it. Smallish forces, but it's definitely a scenario that can be changed and adapted, and add a few caveats in. Yeah, definitely something that I'll be doing again in the future. Maybe for ammunition wagon this time, or something else, with some bigger forces. But yeah, a nice little scenario teaser. So hope you enjoyed. So like I say, just a smallish one this one, but thoroughly enjoyed. Thanks.